For over a decade, Nina Cuccurullo has been growing tomatoes from her glass house in the Wellington suburb of Island Bay. These are not just any tomatoes. She and other Italian descendants have been growing the Isle of Capri tomatoes since they were first brought to New Zealand by her grandfather, or nonno, in the 1960s. For Nina and her mother Teresa, it represents a family legacy.
My name is Nina Cuccurullo.
And I'm Nina's mother. My name is Teresa Cuccurullo. My dad was a fisherman here, and also my husband. He was from Italy, and he came to New Zealand in 1952. His sister sponsored him. She was already here, and they found a job with him with a milkman. He used to bring the milk around to all their houses, and he did all, different jobs. And he worked in an abattoir and all different places. He came from Massalobranz, is another village opposite Capri. It's on the mainland.
Was that why they came out? For those opportunities?
Yes. Yeah. Not much work over there.
The immigrants did come here because they were leaving Italy just after the war. And there's a saying, some of them, when they went back, they say, "Why did you leave?" And the ones here said, we made room for you, because there was just not enough work for everybody. So they took that opportunity, and very much part of the, chain migration. And they would come here, and of course they were coming here to better themselves, to start new families. So they took every opportunity that they could to earn money and to become part of New Zealand society. Nonno was one of the early ones in the 1920s, but there were others before him that were here as well, because the Italian fishermen came here, and there was a big group of Shetland Islanders also here in Island Bay, and they say that the Shetland Islanders taught the Italian fishermen how to fish the Cook Strait, because they were used in Italy to the Mediterranean, to a much calmer sea, but fishing out of Cook Strait needed quite a few skills to be able to do that.
There are many ways Italians practice their culture. For Nina and Teresa, that has meant a strong connection to the Catholic Church. For others, including my own, it's at the kitchen table when it's time to mangiare, to eat. Tomatoes feature heavily in Italian cooking, as it is in the Cuccurullo household.
It is a tradition in our house that for Christmas Day we have a tomato salad. So as always, the aim was to have the tomato salad on that day, and octopus salad. They were the two things. So we had the fishing side and the agricultural side.
It's really yummy.
It would be.
So, and then the sauce is central to all the other food, because, you grow the tomatoes, make the sauce, so that's the sauce for the macaroni, it's the sauce for the lasagna, the ravioli, the parmigiana. So the sauce is used quite a lot sort of in the cooking, and that's why it was sort of bottled so it could be used during the year. Passata making now in modern times is much easier than what I remember as a child, because we would all come together, and everything, the sauce would be boiled in old coppers, and the lids would be, or the tops would be put on. So now I've sort of streamlined it a bit to adapt to the way I can do it. And we still have a passata maker, not one made out of steel, like we still have the original one that my grandparents had, but a passata maker from Italy. We get, we wait till the tomatoes are lovely and ripe, use this machine which separates the pulp from the seeds and the skin. But before you do that, you actually have to cut them into pieces and take out, there's usually a little bit of a hard stalky bit that comes off. So then it goes through this machine, and it's, you're turning it, and then it beautifully separates. You get the sauce, and then you get the skins. But you put the skins in a few times, you keep redoing them, because there's always more sauce to come out. And then when that goes into a pot, and then I boil it, I put in a big sprig of basil, which we grow ourselves, and some salt.
The tomatoes Nina's family grows originate from Capri, the seeds having been gathered each season and used to grow the next year's crop for over 6 decades. The roots run deep.
The seeds came from Capri, but they were from somewhere else before they started growing them on Capri. And since I've been talking to relatives, it seems as if the strain has been lost a bit, or maybe they've cross-pollinated. You know, they mentioned, oh, you'll have the true flavour.
And what is so special about this variety of tomatoes? What are their characteristics that make them different from what people find in the supermarket here?
They're quite identifiable. So because what a friend of mine are constantly looking on Facebook is to see who else is growing them and to see what the name is. So they're an elongated shape. They sort of go a little bit green at the top, and there's not much seeds in them, and they're acid free, and the skin is quite thin, so it's not a thick skin, and it can be quite sort of watery, so they're not ideal for making sun-dried tomatoes. The shape is quite distinct.
Teresa explains how they collect the seeds from the best of the season's labours.
We get the best tomatoes on the crop, bigger ones, let them ripen on the stem, bring them in, cut them, take out all the seeds that there are, it's not many, and separate them, and all the pieces that you've cut up to get the seeds, they can be made into a sauce.
Nothing goes to waste?
Nothing goes to waste. You use everything.
Yeah.
I get all the seeds, and they've got all that membrane all around them. I put them in a sieve, not a big one, you know, those ones for the soup and stuff like that. And I sort of brush them around a bit, it gets most of the stuff off, and I put it on the windowsill. We get lovely sun on that windowsill. I put it up there to dry, and after a couple of days that membrane starts to dry out all around. So then you with your nail you can pick out the seed. It's very sort of time consuming, yeah.
Your dad was the one who kind of initially took up the growing of them and kept it going for all these years?
He did. But then the other friends cottoned on, and they were doing it, and then they were exchanging the progress.
And sharing the plants across the community.
So Dad got the seeds, because Nonno, which was my grandfather, brought the seeds back from Italy, and then Dad married Mum, and Nonno gave the seeds to my father, because we had the glass house here, and they grow well in the glass house, even though Dad had the tomatoes growing outside as well. So that's how they started. And then Dad, because he come from a sort of I suppose, agrarian, rural background, he just loved being out in the garden. So he, as well as a vegetable gardener, he was a very good flower gardener as well. So Dad planted them, and then Dad, he knew they were special. He'd have a lot of plants, up to about 60 inside the glass house, and then quite a few more outside. So he was kept very, very busy. He was a fish retailer in Cuba Street, and he would do that during the week, getting up early, but then when he got home, then it was straight into the glass house. So it was a passion. He was happy there. He always wanted me to take photos, so photos, I'm sure in Italy they've got more photos of us, of him, you know, in the glass house. So he did grow them every year. And then when my brothers started up their business, he thought they might be a good item to sell. And so he was actually one of the initial ones that started selling the tomatoes in the shop, just for a short period of time. It wasn't big quantities. And of course, you know, plants were exchanged and given to friends.
And when he passed, obviously, your brother and yourself took on keeping growing the tomatoes, and you've been doing that for a number of years now?
Yes, and with Mum's help at the beginning, because Mum remembered more things than us. Gino, because prior to my father, you know, passing away, he'd been married for quite a while, and so Dad had helped him set up his glass house. So Gino had been learning, you know, a lot more than me, because I've sort of been learning as I go, and of course with Gino and with Mum, to grow the tomatoes.
Nina's taken over from her father and grandfather before her in keeping the Capri tomatoes going. She takes me inside the glass house, where little red gems grow on swirling vines. La dolce vita.
So we're sort of getting towards the end now, but because I've had to replant, see, these are the ones that I grew from the laterals. But see, I'm just trying to see this one here.
And that basil just smells beautiful.
This is coming to the end. And this is the one from, see, this is that distinct shape.
Yes.
See these, look at that.
And I see what you mean about the green on top as well. They've just got a little kind of crown almost, don't they?
Yes, yeah.
How does that feel for you growing these tomatoes, continuing that legacy? As you say, you've been doing this every year, the family essentially, since the 1960s.
Well, in some ways, it's a privilege that we've been able to do this, and that it's part of our history, and it's a time where you think about your sort of grandparents, think about, I think about my father, and that we now are getting it sort of out to the rest of the community and to the family. It's great to see now some of the, younger people starting to grow these tomatoes too, because then that legacy has continued.
Nina Cuccurullo there, speaking from her home in Wellington's Island Bay. I also spoke with her mother, Teresa, and this year's tomatoes are coming to an end. If you're keen on growing some of your own seeds and keeping this cherished Capri variety alive, you'll have to wait until next year.